Which is crueler, war or time? Let's find out. Hey everybody, welcome back to another DystopiaJunkie GCSE revision video. I'm Liam, aka Mr. Knight, aka DystopiaJunkie, and I hope you're having an awesome day so far. As I hope is pretty clear by now, this video will be about Thomas Hardy's poem A Wife in London, which appears on the WJEC Eduqas English Literature syllabus. This poem is on page 13 of the WJEC Eduqas GCSE Poetry Anthology, and although that's an unlucky number for some people, it won't be for you lot, as this video will, I hope, help you to understand the poem in much greater depth and help you to make some high quality notes for it. Make sure you've got your anthology out and open to page 13 as you watch this video, and also make sure that you've got a pen for note taking, highlighters for, well, highlighting, and an extra piece of paper too, just in case you run out of space for making notes. This video will follow the same structure as the others in this series. If this is the first video of mine that you're seeing, then please do follow the link in the top right corner of the screen around now. It will take you to my entire WJEC Eduqas Poetry Anthology playlist, which will eventually cover the entire anthology. So in this video I will read the poem, go through its context, provide a close reading, consider the poem's meaning, mood and the poet's motivation. I'll also think about themes for a bit, and then finally at the end of the video, because I'm super nice like that, there will be an optional revision task for you to complete. So that's the structure of today's video. Before we get properly started, how about you do me a favour and drop this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Doing that will help my videos reach even more people, and that is the aim of the game, to help as many people out as I can. Okay, so now that I've done the cringy YouTubery stuff, it's time to read the poem. Make sure that you follow along. A Wife in London. 1. The Tragedy. She sits in the tawny vapour that the city lanes have uprolled, behind whose webby fold on fold, like a waning taper, the street lamp glimmers cold. A messenger's knock cracks smartly, flashed news is in her hand, of meaning it dazes to understand, though shaped so shortly, he has fallen in the far south land. 2. The Irony. 'Tis the morrow, the fog hangs thicker, the postman nears and goes, a letter is brought whose lines disclose by the firelight flicker his hand, whom the worm now knows. Fresh, firm, penned in the highest feather, page full of his hoped return, and of home-planned jaunts by break and burn in the summer weather, and of new love that they would learn. So there's the poem. Now we've read the poem, it's time to think about its context. I probably don't need to repeat this much more, but you must remember that relating your analysis of a poem to its context is incredibly important. It's equal to 1/3 of the marks across this part of the paper. So Thomas Hardy was alive in the Victorian age, and he wrote a lot of prose and poetry. Hardy was quite critical of Victorian society, including of London itself, as he felt that it restricted people's potential for happiness. He opposed war, most relevantly including the Boer War, and the notion of fate features prominently across his writing. This poem is related to the theme of war, and in particular, the specific war in question is the Second Boer War. Now, I'm no history expert, so a quick bit of research has told me that the Second Boer War was fought between the 11th of October 1899 to the 31st of May 1902. You may not need to know the exact dates for your exam, but having a quick look at them tells us that Hardy would have been roughly 60 years old when war erupted, meaning that he could not take part and could only watch and comment. War broke out over the British Empire's influence over parts of southern Africa. At the start of the war, the British were overconfident and underprepared, which perhaps was a cause for the 22,000 casualties that the British forces suffered. Despite this, the British forces were eventually victorious. During the Boer War, telegrams were used to transmit urgent and official news from the battlefront back to Britain. Less urgent or personal news was transmitted via post. This distinction is integral to our understanding the poem's sadness and misfortune. Okay, so here is your last reminder to grab your highlighters and to set up a key. In terms of titles in the anthology, I think that this is one of the ones that you could say the most about, and so I've actually given it 1, 2, 3 questions. So have a quick read and think and see what notes you can make about the poem's title. Okay, so the indefinite article A suggests that there are many more people in a similar situation. This is because we generally use the indefinite article when talking about one thing out of many. For instance, this is a poem from your anthology. It is not the poem from your anthology, as that would suggest it is the only one or the most important one. Using the indefinite article in this way also creates the impression that the person at the heart of the poem, the wife, is generic. She is an every man or every woman or every wife in this case. She symbolises all people in the same situation. Wife is significant for the reasons I've written on the slide, so I've suggested that by referring to the eponymous woman as wife, the poem indicates that the most important aspect of her identity is her marital status, and that the poem will be about her husband somehow. By including London in the poem's title, it is clear that the poem will be about an English soldier, and so Hardy's readers would have perhaps known that the war mentioned in this poem was the Boer War, as this poem was published in December 1899, 2 months after the start of the Boer War. With London being England's capital city, you could argue that it is England's heart. If that's an interpretation that you agree with, then you could argue that Hardy might be alluding to the love shared by the soldier and the wife too. A bit tenuous, I know, but if you explain yourself, that could be quite a nice outside of the box idea. Right, so this poem has 4 stanzas. As such, I will split my analysis of the rest of the poem up into 4. This poem is full of analytical potential, and as such, I have a whopping 7 questions for this stanza. So, get ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. So there we go. Pause the video if you want to make your own annotations before seeing some of mine. So splitting the poem in 2 could represent how the wife and soldier were separated as he went off to fight in war. It could also represent how her life has been halved by his death. The title of this half of the poem, The Tragedy, creates a sense of foreboding and inevitability as it foreshadows the soldier's eventual death. I argue that the verb sits suggests the wife has a sense of powerlessness about her. The verb has connotations of inactivity and passiveness, and as we'll find out in a moment, she's not in a particularly nice place, and yet she's doing nothing about it. The tawny vapour is referring to the yellow fog that frequently covered London during the time that this poem was set. It creates an eerie, almost sinister atmosphere. Webby fold on fold is still referring to the fog and suggests a sense of entrapment, as it sounds like a spider's web. Could this be Hardy criticising London? Like a waning taper means like a candle burning down. A candle burning down is a classic image that suggests the fragility of and imminent end of life. It foreshadows the husband's untimely death. To be honest with you, you could highlight this in either your imagery or your language colour. The bottom line is a really vivid image, but the language used to express it is also an example of oxymoron, so totally your choice. There is oxymoron in this image, as glimmer is often associated with light and heat, yet here it is cold. This could foreshadow the sense of dread the wife will feel when she finds out that her husband is dead. Nothing can warm her or cheer her up. Similarly, coldness is often associated with death, so perhaps the husband's death is being foreshadowed. And here we have the poem's second stanza. There's a lot going on in this one, particularly with regards to structure, so I've got a fair few questions for this stanza too. In fact, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. If you want to pause the video to make your own annotations, now is a good time to do so. Consider the sounds in knock cracks. There is something onomatopoeic about this phrase, whilst the repetition of those harsh k sounds is consonants. This phrase sounds almost violent, perhaps relating to how the news the wife is about to hear is a harsh interruption to her life, or it could even refer to the violence of the soldier's death. Flashed news could refer to the telegram, and we know, using our contextual knowledge, that they were used to deliver official and serious news. Flashed suggests how sudden and unexpected the news was. Syntax is just a fancy way of saying word order, and the word order of the phrase "of meaning it dazes to understand" is a bit odd, almost like a riddle. I think that this could have been done in order to represent the wife's shock, as she cannot comprehend the news that she is receiving. The dashes have a few different effects or uses. Firstly, they mimic the style of the telegram. Secondly, they are an example of caesura, which is a break or pause in the middle of a line of poetry. This slows down the poem's pace, adding an emotional weight to the line. Finally, they also emphasize the words contained within them, as if the news isn't quite sinking in to the wife's head. Has fallen is euphemistic, meaning it's a mild or indirect way of saying something harsh or blunt. In this case, has died. One interpretation of this is that the wife cannot or will not accept the news, and so she avoids thinking of her husband as dead. Another way of considering the phrase is by thinking that it is the British Army who wrote the telegram and used the euphemism. You could argue that it shows the army trying to soften the blow for the wife, which is caring. Or on the other hand, you could suggest that they don't care enough about the wife to be up front with her. But which interpretation do you side with most? Ellipsis, as I'm sure you know, is punctuation used to suggest that something is missing. In this case, it is the rest of the telegram, or, if you want to think really deeply, the husband's life. By using ellipsis, Hardy is suggesting that the wife cannot or will not read more of the telegram, indicating her raw emotional state and inability to accept the news she has received. Here we have the poem's third stanza, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 questions that I'm going to be considering in relation to it. But before I do that, why don't you pause the video and make your own annotations? If you want answers to those 4 questions, as well as my analysis of the rest of the poem, my discussion of which themes the poem might apply to, and much, much more, then you're going to have to watch part 2 of my analysis of this poem, because this is the end of part 1, I'm afraid. Why not have a go at answering those questions that were just on screen a moment ago, and even add your ideas down into the comments section. Thank you, as ever, for watching my video. If it's helped you out, drop it a like, and why not subscribe to my channel as well, and I will see you very, very soon. Cheers.